Exactly.
All right, I've hit the big green button there. We'll wait a couple seconds. One of these days, I'm actually going to count down how long it actually is from the time I hit the button until we're live, but I just don't think that's necessary. So by now, we should be live. So hello and welcome to the RPG Academy Live. This is Michael, and I have with me tonight an extra special guest co-host. You probably already are familiar with his work, but if not, I'll let him introduce himself to you. James, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Michael. I really appreciate it. I'm James Introcaso. I am a blogger over at the Don't Split the Podcast Network, and or I guess I am a podcaster over at the Don't Split the Podcast Network, and a blogger over at worldbuilderblog.com, where I talk about game design and I talk with people in the industry on the podcast and stuff. It is a lot of fun. Michael is a friend of my show, Tabletop Babble.
That is correct. I've been on your show at least once, and I think you've now been on our show a couple times.
I have been. I owe you.
So we've mixed communicable diseases. Whatever we have, we both have now. And you sold it short. The any winning World Builder blog.
That's true. Well, I've been dethroned, as it were. So it went. For whatever reason, right, there's two any categories: best website and also best blog. And Gnome Stew, man, those guys at Gnome Stew, they either win one or the other depending on which category the Ennies put them in. So I won best blog, and then the next year I wasn't even nominated. I think it just goes to show, here at the RPG Academy, y'all have true quality because you're consistently nominated.
Exactly. Yeah, we've lost twice in a row. Not a lot of people can say that.
You know, you're like the Leonardo DiCaprio of podcasts, and that's not a bad thing to be. That's not a bad thing to be. I'm like that guy who was in The Artist who nobody remembers. He wanted none. They were like, who's this guy? He hasn't worked since, So.
I just remember the dog. Wasn't that the movie with the dog in it?
Yes. Yeah.
So everyone remembers the dog rather than, because I don't know the name of the actor to save my life, but I remember the dog. So tonight is a little bit different. We're actually going to do a show and tell. This will be our first ever live show and tell. This is going to be show and tell episode 50. And the reason that we're doing this tonight is James has a couple projects that he is working on that they're somewhat of a time-sensitive matter, but they're also both really super cool. So it seemed to work out that we had an opening on the schedule. He had stuff to talk about, so we thought we would bring him on. But it turns out one of them is now a little less time-sensitive because it's actually sold out.
Yes.
But let's talk about it anyways. D&D in a Castle.
Yes.
What is this?
So D&D in a Castle, people can head on over to dndinacastle.com to get the details. But essentially, Regency Encounters is this event company that puts together these amazing events. They put together like a Harry Potter festival and a Jane Austen ball and that kind of thing. And they are these big sort of what they call bucket list events. And so they decided this year for the first time to put on D&D in a castle. So in a small castle in France, we're going to get together over the 4th of July weekend. And we are going to play lots and lots of D&D and eat French food. And it's going to be a ton of fun. There are celebrity DMs who are going to be there, like Rudy Rutenberg and Satine Phoenix. Jeremy Crawford is one of the DMs who will be there. A guy who goes by the name the Tim GM, Tim Modeshaw, will be there. He's a paid GM. Zoltar, old Sage Advice Zoltar, is going to be there. And essentially the idea is we will run D&D for these people, and I am also one of the GMs. I'm not going to put celebrity in front of my name. I'm just there. But it's going to be a super, super fun weekend. Like you said, the event is sold out. But if you are interested, there is a wait list that you can sign up for in case somebody drops. And, international travel is a commitment, and sometimes people drop last minute. So if you're interested, I'd recommend go checking it out. And I will just add that one of the guests who will be there, one of the players, is friend of this show, Neil Powell of the Dungeon Masters Block podcast is going to be there.
Way to go, Neil.
Yeah. So it should be really, really great. A guy named Jason Teeter, DM Jason on Twitter, is really putting a lot of work into organizing it and help making the D&D experience amazing. And Regency Encounters is like they're going nuts with it. They want it to be a situation where all you need to do is show up. They will provide custom dice. They will provide pencils. They will even, like, if you're not familiar with D&D, or if you're going with a romantic getaway with someone who maybe isn't as familiar with D&D as you are, they will make that person's character and, like, you know, and make sure they're statted and optimized, but they'll have a conversation with you first to say, like, what do you want to play? What are you interested? What sort of character do you want us to make for you? Not just hand you a random pre-gen.
Will they feed me grapes at the table and roll my dice for me?
I will feed you grapes at the table for you, but only for you, Mike.
Only for me. Fantastic. So I have a question, and I'm guessing most people who are somewhat interested have the same question. How much does this cost?
That's a good question. So it is expensive. It sort of depends on the package you want. You can go all inclusive essentially for a lot of money, and we're talking in the thousands of dollars, probably like 2 to 3 in some cases. You can have all of your food prepared and everything while you're there. This does not include getting to the actual castle itself. So, you know, if you're coming from the States, that's easily another, if you buy your tickets now, right, it's easily going to be another $1,500 probably minimum. So it is expensive for sure. It is a thing that I would want to go to, but I don't know if I could if I wasn't being asked to go run games. That's me. It sounds
awesome, but apparently my invite to GM got lost in the mail, and I'm busy that weekend anyway, so it keeps me from having to beg out. But yeah, I don't think I'll be going this year. But maybe next year.
Sure. And that's the thing is, I think, obviously the event has been successful. I know there's rumblings of wanting to do it again. They need to see, how it goes and everything. But I'm sure once I get there and they find out I am a terrible, horrible person, they will be looking for other GMs. And I'm sure just for variety's sake, just to change it up, they're going to want to have people. And I have a long list of awesome GMs to recommend. You are at the very top.
Well, I don't know about the top, but I should be on the list somewhere. So my other question is this all going to be like Adventurers League type D&D, or is it like homebrew? Does each GM run whatever they want? Is there a scheduled program, like you go through games and it's a full campaign?
So it won't be Adventurers League legal, but it will.
Ooh, Adventurers League illegal. I like
that.
That's
right. That's right. But it will be set in the Forgotten Realms. Most of the adventures will be. If you are playing at Jeremy Crawford's table, it will be set in Ravenloft. And he has a sort of a homebrew version of Ravenloft that he's like expanded and made bigger. And so he wants to do something with that. I am going to be running a what if style campaign, and it will be what if Tyranny of Dragons was successful, right? What if Tiamat had actually come up out of Avernus and destroyed the Sword Coast and had a dragon army, and now dragons are ruling the place? What does it look like? And so that is sort of the crux of what I'll be running, post-apocalyptic Forgotten Realms. So.
Well, that does sound very cool. I am extremely jealous that I'm not going either as an invited guest or as a paying patron, because it sounds really, really cool. I know a few months, I guess maybe last year, there was a gentleman, I can't remember his name right now. You probably know him. He was trying to set up something somewhere in like Colorado.
Oh, yeah. Robert Ducci was trying to set up something.
That's right. He was going to do something similar. And the same thing, I was like, oh, this sounds so cool. I was really excited about it. And then that one apparently something happened. Didn't work out.
I think not enough people signed up is sort of just the long and the short of it. And I totally understand because, there are times you can head to a local con, you can head to your friend's house to play D&D. So I totally understand that it is not a thing. It is a risky thing, which is why I asked to come on here. And then I just got word literally last night that they had sold out.
Right.
But like I said, there's a wait list. If people are interested, check it out, and they'll be doing it again in years to come. So look forward to that if it's something you're interested in.
All right. Very, very cool. So we will transition away from that. But before we jump to your next project, I want to get a quick plug in about a Catacon.
Let's do it.
You and I were chatting about it a little bit before we got onto the air. So we're not quite in March yet. I think we're still like 3 hours away. But in March is when the Kickstarter goes live. It's going to go live on March 14th. So that's 2 weeks from tonight. We're going to do it live. We're going to turn on the button during the live show, and we're going to talk about it. And hopefully we'll see the numbers go blah, 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 blah. But this is, again, it's a hybrid Kickstarter this year. It's very different. I'm fingers crossed. I've done the math. I hope it's going to work. But the only tickets that we're selling, actual badges, are VIP. That's the only badges you can buy through the Kickstarter. We also have places for donations and sponsorships like Tabletoppers, which have usually done very well, corporate sponsorships, which we've had a lot of success with. So just from all those things, and also the t-shirt, can't forget that because I think we'll get some t-shirt sales, we're hoping to get to $6,000. That is what we need to make our deposits for the DCC, because that's right around $5,000, and Kickstarter takes like 9.5%. And then on August 1st, is when everything else will go live through Eventbrite. And then everything else will basically be the same. There'll be cheaper GM badges, regular badges, vendors, demos, all that kind of good stuff. So you had I want to say pleasure, but I'll change it to opportunity to come to a Catacon last year. So what'd you think?
So I would definitely say pleasure, because it was my favorite convention last year. It was the first time I had ever gone, and not just my favorite convention last year, my favorite convention I've ever been to. And I went with my buddy Rudy Basso, who co-owns Don't Split the Podcast Network with me. He's sort of my con traveling buddy. We always go together. And because he's a good friend, and he said the same exact thing. It is a place where you can play pretty much any game. So if you're really interested in trying a new RPG, or there's an RPG you love but you can't find anybody locally to play it with you or online because it's weird and obscure, you can play it there. If you're interested in playing D&D 5e, you can play that there too. Like, it's not just weird obscure stuff, and you're rubbing shoulders with the podcast elite, like the RPG Academy, like the One Shot Network. So there's a lot of awesome people there. A lot of awesome designers show up. It was just a blast. And I met and had so much fun with so many people. The guys from the Redemption podcast were so much fun.
Those guys are awesome. And actually, we have to say folks now, because it's not just dudes. We got Emily is now part of the show officially as a cast member.
Yes, yeah, that and she was there as well. And right?
She went the year before. I don't think she came last year.
She's not there. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of the wonderful actress who plays his mom on the show.
Oh, that would be Danny.
Yes, yeah, she is incredible. She's a hoot. But the whole cast was there. That was amazing. So many great people. Opportunities to win prizes, all kinds of prizes. Like, this is a convention where you just feel the love. And there's also like weird side stuff going on. Like, there's this big room where everybody's playing RPGs and having an awesome time. And then you'll look into a room and it's like, oh, hey, the Dungeon Masters block guys are fighting the Tarrasque with John Arcadian over in that room. What's going on over there?
Yep.
Hey, look, there's a weird geek quiz show going on down the hall over here. Let's check that out.
Yep.
So, it was just, and it's so manageable. Like, I know this isn't true for you, Michael.
I was gonna say, yeah, maybe.
you're running, but honestly, it is the smoothest convention I've ever been to. Everything started on time. Everything went the way it was supposed to. Everything went as advertised. And it felt like a vacation. Usually when I come back from a con, I am exhausted.
Yeah.
This, I felt like relaxed and energized. And so I can't recommend it enough. You'll make new friends. You'll love it.
Yeah,
Love it.
we have actually settled on a motto, and by we I mean me, because I've kind of been saying this for years about it. That's kind of like was my selling point, and I just decided to make that the official motto. Because for the podcast, our motto is if you're having fun, you're doing it right. But for a Catacon, our official motto now is it's gaming with friends, old and new. Because it's friends you haven't met yet, but they'll be friends by the time you're done.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, it is, I made so many friends and saw so many people that I know, but maybe hadn't met in person or only get to see at other cons. So it was, but got to actually spend time. Like Gen Con, I feel like it's like, hey, how's it going? See ya. You know, this you really get to spend quality time with.
And I do think that's a selling point. And I really do appreciate you waxing poetic. I didn't necessarily, set you up to do that. So I really, really appreciate you taking the time and sharing. The fact that you just like it really does make me feel awesome, because that's the reason we do it. We want people to have fun. We want them to come back. So if you want a VIP badge, there's a limited number. This year there's more. We're actually going to do 25, but that's still not a whole lot. So if you want a VIP badge, you need to be ready around 9:15 on March 14th, because they're probably going to go, I would say, in minutes. I'm going to be optimistic and say minutes. But we still need people for donations. If you want us to buy a specific game for our game library, you can do that. If you want to buy a t-shirt, only buy the t-shirt if you're coming, because I'm not mailing it. So you have to come and pick up your t-shirt. You can donate a room. You can get a sponsorship. You can just give us money and say, hey, I can't come, but I want you to have a good time. Here's $5. All that would be awesome. Assuming we get to $6,000, fingers crossed, everything else will be fine. We'll do that through Eventbrite. But let's move on, because we have something else very exciting to talk about. You have a Kickstarter project that will be launching any day now.
Yes, yeah. So it's actually going to launch on Saturday. It runs for 2 weeks.
That's short.
It is a short Kickstarter. We need 2,000 Canadian dollars.
Oh, wow.
So yes, yeah. So I am running a Kickstarter with a guy named John Four, and really John Four is the person running it. He runs a website called roleplayingtips.com. It has been around for decades, and he is just your classic amazing Canadian. Super nice. And one of the hardest working people out there in this industry. He's written tons of advice for GMs. He's written a bunch of different books. He puts up video courses that people can sort of walk through on his website. So he's just very great. And he reached out to me in 2016, at the beginning of 2016, and said, hey, I had this idea for a Dungeons and Dragons adventure that takes you from levels 1 through 20. And it is designed to teach GMs how to slowly sort of become more comfortable with improvisation. So it starts with levels 1 through 5 are sort of this little bit more linear adventure. You go to point Dungeon A, and then Dungeon B, then Dungeon C, and you have a home base of operations. The second part of the adventure is a big sandbox. People can go wherever they want. The third part of the adventure is a big hex crawl. So it gets GMs more comfortable with each of these slightly more open concepts as they go on. And I said, sounds cool. Why are you telling me? And he said, well, I want you to write it.
Sure, as you do. Yeah.
Right. And I said, oh, it sounded like you had it written there. And he did. He had a very big outline for what he wanted to happen. But he didn't have all of the details filled in. And he said, you're more familiar with sort of the 5e format than I am. What do you say we have a go at this together? And so we did. We wrote, it is going to be about 350-ish pages of 5e adventure material. It takes you from levels 1 through 20, and it is this adventure path called the Demonplague that he actually brainstormed with a group of people during one of these workshops he was doing. And the idea is this, that there is a valley that has a big glacier in it, and one day an asteroid crashes into the glacier. and it creates all of this chaos. The glacier melts. There are all these earthquakes. There are weird arcane storms coming through.
All right. Hello and welcome back, hopefully, to the RPG Academy podcast. I'm still seeing red and yellow, so that's not looking too good, but we'll do our best. Hopefully the audio will at least be okay if the video is not. So I sort of had to cut you off in the middle. I apologize for that. So we're talking about the Demonplague, which is a Kickstarter going live this coming Saturday. It's only going to be up for 2 weeks. You need 2,000 Canadian, which I think is like $17.
That's right.
You are partnering with John Four.
Yes, John Four of roleplayingtips.com. His website's been around forever. A really great guy who gives great GM advice, plays all kinds of systems, and is incredible. So you should check him out at roleplayingtips.com. We partnered up. We're making this level 1 through 25E adventure. The idea is that it'll teach GMs, new GMs, how to sort of become more comfortable with improv and more open. Because, you know, if you're having fun, you're doing it right. So that will be that's the sort of intent of the product, but the product also has a really awesome story behind it. And essentially the idea is that there is this valley. It's got a big glacier in it, and the glacier has a bunch of different civilizations living on it. One day, a big asteroid comes, melts the glacier, knocks into the valley, causing all these earthquakes. Millions of people are displaced. They all come to this tiny village, those who survive, and they find out that, like, oh, beneath the glacier, there was all this crazy stuff. There were 4 civilizations that were somehow buried in this big ice slide, and now all of the undead and other weird stuff that is coming out of the muck and mud is there, and all of these dungeons are uncovered as well. Eventually the players come to learn that there is something really, really bad that wiped out all of these civilizations that is also was imprisoned under this ice, and now it's getting out, and it's up to the players how they want to deal with it. This is a scenario where they can take a lot of different risks or not take a lot of risks and try to play it safe, but there's a cost to that too. And
Sure.
so so it's a really really fun and interesting adventure. The intent is you can drop it into any campaign setting because it's just this little valley. So you can drop it into your existing game, or you can have a entire game just set right here in this valley. You don't need to add anything else to it. A lot of new creatures, new magic items, that sort of thing. So check it out. It's going to be pretty cool. It's the Demonplague Kickstarter. It's starting on this Saturday, March 3rd. I will be tweeting and writing about it over, at worldbuilderblog.com and on my Twitter at James Introcaso.
Okay. So I've been checking out the chat. Right now, I'm showing all green, which is what I normally see. But it looks like we were kind of jumpy there for a little while, so the frame rate was bad. I think the audio was coming through. So hopefully everyone got at least the gist of that. So quick recap, Demonplague Kickstarter, this coming Saturday, super awesome. Helping new GMs specifically. It's a 1 to 20 campaign. It's like a tutorial sort of version as you go, but it's also just a fun campaign, so you don't have to be new. So I always like to ask, what is the big spin? Like when you go to the bottom of the list, there's usually something on there. It's like $1,000 and they'll fly you to France and you can play D&D in a castle. So what is the upper level tier if someone just really wants to throw some money at this?
So there isn't any super big tier.
Boo.
Like
Boo.
There are some big stretch goals. So essentially the stretch goals, we're going to add adventure locations to this thing. Those are the first couple. But then if we hit 10,000, or no, actually, wait, sorry, it's all been adjusted. If we hit over 10,000 is what I'll say, Canadian dollars, I will actually run it as a Twitch campaign.
Oh.
and we'll release it that way, so people can check it out and see how it's run and that sort of thing. It's gonna be a really fun game. Like, it is, if you like post-apocalyptic stuff, this is going to be really fun. But yeah, the big thing is you get the hardcover print 300-page tome. That's really the biggest.
Okay. So then the second question I always like to ask is where's the level that most people will probably going to come in at? Because if you check out a lot of Kickstarters, there's always the crazy one at the bottom, or usually there is. And then there's the one where it's sort of like, this is where we think you're going to come in. Like, if you might come a little lower if you want just PDFs, or a little higher if you want like the autographed book. But where's our landing strip, and what is that going to cost us?
So the landing strip there is going to be probably the PDF and print version, which is now I need to pull it up because everything's changed. As you know, with Kickstarters, this is the first time I've ever done this, and it's going to be pretty crazy to see how it goes. But
our first Kickstarter, I mean, it was being edited and revised probably up until the minute we hit the button. This last one, I've had it ready to go for a couple weeks now. I'm just kind of sitting on my thumbs waiting to hit the button. But yeah, the first one, there's a lot of calculation, recalculation, and editing, and blah 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 blah.
Exactly. So this one is it's going to be, I don't want to give a price just in case, like you said, It could be last minute changing, but I will say the PDF is going to come with a print on demand voucher. So the print tier doesn't look that much different than the PDF. It's only $5 higher, but it's because you're going to pay more of the cost after that. But you'll pay just for the glue and ink to bind the book together. You won't pay the full retail price of the print book when you're doing that, and the voucher is for shipping, essentially.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's what that is for. And the big thing I want to hammer home is that it's only a 2-week Kickstarter. So once it starts, get on board before you forget, and then you won't have a chance to remember because it'll be over. And the other thing I will say is the adventure is written. It is written. It has been edited. We're just looking for money for art and layout at this point. So it is a Kickstarter that when you back and when the Kickstarter is done, we will actually be sending the Word file out to everybody once it's done, so they can start to get familiar with the adventure and read it if they want to.
Okay.
As we're laying it out and that sort of thing. So this is a thing that we are definitely going to make because it's already half made.
Gotcha.
So you will get it.
So what is the expected delivery date for the final version then?
Yes. So expected delivery dates, the PDF, which we're going to do 2 ways. If you get the PDF, we'll send it to you in a classic 2-column format and in a 1-column format for e-readers, because it can be easier on an e-reader if you've got 1 column. So we're looking at that probably will be in the summer. That'll be done. And then the print will follow after that. Once we send it out, we're going to take the Rob Schwab method of send it out to everybody, and then they can say, oh, you have a weird typo here, or the layout's a little messed up here, before we send it to print.
Nice.
So print will be a couple months afterwards, but it's because we want to make sure the print will be perfect.
All right. Very, very cool. So a quick plugs for myself. Excuse me. If anyone's not yet on our Discord and would like to be, let me know. I can give you the invite. There are some secret things we've talked about on Discord that have not been made public, but anyone on Discord already knows about them. I'm talking about what's going to happen on May 18th through 20th specifically. I also threw out a preview link to our current Kickstarter on there as well for people to take a look, like you said, and kind of make sure everything looks good. So if you want any sort of behind the scenes sneak peeks, please join our Discord. And we're currently running a Twitter follower contest giveaway thingy. I don't know what you call it. But when we hit 500 followers, we're going to give away a copy of the D&D Rules Cyclopedia, print on demand through Drive Through RPG, which is what made me think of it when you said that. So I think we're about 250 now. We're like halfway there. So yay us.
Get that. It's awesome.
It is. I love that book so much. That actually probably will very quickly be one of the patron games I was talking about earlier with you before. That's probably going to be one of those I run, and I may even have something for that when that May 18th thing, whatever that is, happens. Might involve the rules cyclopedia. So
interesting.
Nice.
I dig it.
Yeah. So anything else about Demonplague that we need to know, or do you think would be like, if someone's on the fence, like, do I really need that? Like, what's the thing that's like, oh no, okay, yeah, I definitely need that.
So I will say it is a it's a 1 through 20 campaign, which we don't really have from a lot of people at this point. And it is a game I am so eager to play, which doesn't really happen usually when I've worked on something for as long as I've worked on this. I am sick of it and I never want to hear about it again. This is something I can't wait to get into people's hands because it is really brilliant. There are so many different ways the story can go, and there's a town full of fun, desperate NPCs. So I would say if you're on the fence, check out that PDF tier because you will not be disappointed.
It's kind of like when you work at a restaurant and like you get tired of the food, but this time you're not tired of the food.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Or I do a lot of TV work.
Okay.
And when I work at a TV network, it's like, do I really want to watch more National Geographic? I've worked here for 4 years, but yeah, this is something special. And, maybe I'll be running some adventures from it at a catacon.
What?
Yeah, that would be cool.
That would actually be very cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So again, Saturday, whatever time it is, I'm sure you'll tweet it out. I'll tweet it out for you as well, or retweet you, whatever. We'll get people going. And yes, it sounds cool. Sounds like something that will be interesting. I probably will check it out at least at some level, just because me and Caleb, or I should say Caleb and I, because he always yells at me when I use bad grammar, but I'm from Kentucky, so whatever. Caleb and I have been working on our own 1 to 20 campaign for a couple years, but we have no experience with this. I've never actually written a module before, so it's not in anywhere near a good shape to do anything with. But I've ran the first part of that adventure probably a dozen times on playtesting, and I've got nothing but wonderful feedback. People who've literally said, if you had it to sale right now, I would buy it at the table, but we've done nothing with it. So it might be helpful for me to see how someone else did that. And it might help motivate me to actually get back on the wagon and do some more with it. But we'll see.
Hey, listen, if I can do it, you can definitely do it. Like that's the thing. So we just need more hours in the day.
Exactly. Yeah, that's my problem is the time. Like I said earlier, I need a time turner. I need to be able to do something on a day, go to work, hang out with the kids, spend time with the wife, and then go back 8 hours and just spend 8 hours doing other stuff. And I'd probably get a lot more done.
Yeah.
Most
exactly.
people would.
Yeah. It's like, the wizard economy. They looked at Hermione Granger. They were like, she needs this, right?
Yeah.
We're not going to use it. We're not going to use this technology to go back and kill Voldemort.
Nope.
The wizard Hitler of our time. The thing everyone says they would do if they could do it. We're just going to use it so she can take a weird divination course.
Yep. So she can double load her class and get a 5.0 GPA.
Right. Exactly.
Awesome. All right. So for the most part, that's kind of what we had to cover tonight. We do have quite a few people in chat with us who've been hanging out. So as usual for a normal show, we'll throw it out. Do you guys have any questions? Or I should say you folks. I'm really working on that. I keep saying guys. It's just like a habit. I'm trying to get better at that and be more inclusive. Say you folks, you people, use youths.
Oh, use guys. That's
different. Yeah, that's different.
That's Philadelphia. Use is very Philadelphia, and it can mean one or more people. So,
again, I do the y'all. That's one or more is y'all. But if any of y'all out there have any questions for James or for myself, it can be about anything we talked about tonight, or it can be about anything in general, role-playing tips, whatever, favorite movies, tips. Whatever you want to know.
Yeah, whatever you need.
I know there's a bit of a delay, so usually about when we throw out the question, we will then take a moment to give some plugs. So where can people find your stuff on the internet?
So you can find my stuff over at don'tsplitthepodcastnetwork.com, worldbuilderblog.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at James Introcaso.
Excellent. And we have one question that's kind of become standard. I don't think we asked it when you were on here last time. If I did, forgive me. But if you were an action figure, What would be your 3 accessories that come in your package?
Oh, wow. That is a good question. And I think about this a lot because I hear you ask it. But I think I would definitely have those rocket, like one of those spring-loaded rocket things that shoots out that you lose in like 5 minutes after you open up the package, right?
Yep.
So I'd have one of those crazy rocket bazookas because those are just fun. And then I think I would have a exploding D20 that, it'd be like a plastic D20 that you would throw and then it would explode. And you have to get all the pieces and you put it back together. And then I would also have a tiny plastic dog.
Nice.
Yeah.
So Rudy asked, where is the best cheesesteak in Philly?
Oh, man. Okay. Rudy. So first of all, Rudy is aware this is a trick question because the answer is that when you go to Philadelphia, cheesesteaks are great, but what you really want is a DeNick's roast pork sandwich. So you go to DeNick's, it's in Reading Terminal Market. It's right across from the convention center, and you are going to get your roast pork sandwich with provolone and with broccoli rabe. That's what you need. That's what you're going to get. If you do really want a cheesesteak, you should go to Jim's on South Street. Don't get caught up in the Geno's Pat's War. Neither of them are as good as Jim's.
Fantastic. So a couple people have actually asked about the recent announcement, which I probably should have brought up, about you joining D&D Beyond. Do you want to talk a little bit about what that's going to look like for you?
Yes. So D&D Beyond is starting to put out some written content as well as video content that Todd has been putting out for years and years. And so Mike Shea and I have joined the team as guest writers, and James Hake has joined as a staff sort of writer for them. He's their lead writer. I am going to be doing a series about homebrew design, or as I call it, design.
Exactly, yeah.
It's going to be a series of 6 articles that shows people how to make 5th edition backgrounds, feats, spells, magic items, races, and monsters. And I'll break it down how you can do it step by step, how to make them balanced, give a lot of advice and that sort of thing. So that'll be the first series of articles I do with them. And provided that goes well and it turns out I'm not like a secret horrible person or anything, hopefully I'll continue to make some content with them. Mike Shea is going to be doing advice for beginner dungeon masters, everything from like how to find a group to how to get comfortable with improv and that sort of thing. And James Hake is going to be doing all kinds of stuff. It all starts next week on D&D Beyond, so check it out.
All right, very, very cool. Short Meanie and 444 asks, what was your reaction to the Mordenkainen Tome of Foes when it was announced?
Super excited. I love this D&D 5th edition release schedule that they have, because they're putting out lots of stuff for dungeon masters, which really doesn't break the game the way a lot of player supplements do. And so I was excited to see a book of more monsters, because the other thing I think about D&D, like think about a troll, right? If trolls existed in real life, they would be super scary. But because they've been around for 70 years, we all know, get out your acid flasks, light that tree on fire. It's a troll. It'll be fine, right? New books full of monsters that maybe aren't as popular, even if they are classic D&D redone monsters, allow you to surprise your players and get that reaction from them. So I'm really excited about another monster book. And I loved Volo's Guide to Monsters, so I'm excited to see more, what are the advice chapters and stuff like that going to be about as well.
Yeah. Again, I'll just do a quick plug here. When Volos came out, we got a copy from Wizards of the Coast. Thank you very much. Being an Any nominated podcast does have its privileges. And
I've never had an Any nominated podcast.
But you have the blog though, so you should be on that list too. I'll hook you up. Ask me later. I'll tell you who got the email. but we really we liked the sort of like notes in the margin. Like we thought that was kind of a funny little thing that they were doing in the book where, you know, like you'd have like the entry and then someone else, I think it was Volo or was it,
Elminster.
Elminster was writing in like, this isn't right type of a thing. So we did the same thing when we wrote our review. Caleb wrote it, and then Matt went back and actually added some asides and sort of like commented on the commentary. And I thought that was really funny. So I really liked it.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a really cool idea too, to do it that way. So yeah, and that was Xanathar's Guide to Everything Else had the Xanathar's notes in it. And then when we went through the DM's Guild Adepts put out a product called Xanathar's Lost Notes to Everything Else, which was, you know, like more subclasses and more. And we had a ton of fun. Actually, Lisa Chen, who is in your chat right now.
Oh, hi, Lisa.
She had a lot of really clever notes that she had. They're just so fun. And the Xanathar notes were like, I mean, I don't want to get too political here, but they were like Trump tweets. Like they were like these crazy, weird ramblings. So they were fun to write.
Very, very, very cool. So what do you think is next? There's been some speculation. I've read some tweets from Chris and from Mike that there's always sort of subtle hints that, you know, if you're paying attention to certain things, you can kind of get an idea of what might be coming next. And I know a lot of people were sort of under the impression this was going to be like a planar guide and or City of Brass sort of situation, or was it the Sigil? Planescape, that's what I'm thinking of. So what's your thought for the next thing, unless you know and you're not allowed to say?
I'm gonna take the fifth. Some of the work that I've done as a DM's Guild adept has given us insight as to what may or may not be coming down the pike.
Okay, fair enough. I guess you need to have time to have your supplement ready fairly quickly and released to the...
Yes, yeah, and I'm also part of there's a friends and family playtest that Wizards puts out, so the adepts were all invited to be part of that playtest. So yeah, I may or may not have play tested.
So being an any winning blogger has its privileges.
Yes. Yeah.
Very, very cool. So a lot of chat going back and forth. A lot of people right now are just sort of talking to each other. There's a conversation about 4E and 5E. It's all very nice, but I actually threw out a tweet yesterday and it has blown up more than any tweet I have ever done. I don't know if you saw it, but I was asking, like, what 3 movies do you think encapsulate your DMing style? And mine probably would change in 15 minutes, but the 3 I chose at the time were John Carpenter's The Thing, The Princess Bride, and Young Frankenstein. So what 3 movies would you pick that you think encapsulates your DMing style?
Well, so I did see this and I did retweet it, and I said the 1994 Adam Sandler comedy Airheads.
Oh, yep.
And A Night at the Roxbury and Biodome, because I thought it would be funny to think of dumb 90s comedies, but I was just making a joke on Twitter. Although there are times my game feels like a dumb 90s comedy full of white guys. So, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I've seen A Night at the Roxbury over 50 times because it came out when I was in middle school. But I would say if I really had to sit down and think about what would my games run like my DMing style, it would probably be I think so. I don't know. I'm hesitating because Rudy is in the chat and I play with him and I feel like he'll be like, no.
Don't you hate that? Like you think you're being like, just enlightened and you have this just great comment and someone's just like cut your legs out from under you.
Yeah, exactly. But I would, if I really had to do it, I would say it's probably like Evil Dead. The Evil Dead series, probably Army of Darkness if we're gonna go with a one movie, right?
Gotcha. Okay, yep.
And I would also throw in then a little bit of Black Panther. Have you seen Black Panther?
Yep,
certainly not with the because we are all white guys, so certainly not fully on in that respect. Like, we're not having a lot of interesting racial commentary because it would probably be inappropriate and dumb if we did it.
Yep.
But I do think, man, the action scenes and sort of the drama in that movie, right, are really, really fun. And then one more. I gotta pick one more. Probably something like Guardians of the Galaxy, I would say. Again, getting the ensemble humor in there.
Yep. No, I think that's cool. I think Black Panther could certainly probably fit into one of those for me as well, just because I'm a big fan of having a villain who actually has a point. Like, I always talk about Captain Planet villains. I don't know if you're familiar with that cartoon or not, but
yeah,
those bad guys were evil for the sake of being evil. Like, you know, they were dumping toxic waste in the ocean, not because it was cheaper for them to do so. They just wanted to do that. So I hated villains who had no real motivation. So I like to give my villains, you know, you could see from a certain point of view that they think they're doing the right thing. Like, they have a reason to do what they're doing. And Killmonger, absolutely, you could argue in a lot of ways was absolutely right. His methods about what he wanted to do were probably the only thing that you would argue that, you know, we probably should unoppress people who are oppressed. I just don't think we should murder everyone and their children to do it, you know?
Yeah.
But again, that's coming from the white guy perspective. So
I think you're absolutely right. He's one of the first villains that Marvel has done that you can really see that with. You know, that Marvel has had a villain problem in their movies for a while. It's like, for a lot of the villains were like, hey, here's an evil scientist who, you know, for whatever reason, usually just has a personal grudge against the hero and therefore is evil now because they'll do nothing to stop them. I think Killmonger, it's fascinating. So, yeah.
And then I had a guest on a couple nights ago for a show, Justin from Crit Academy. I'm going to be joining him on his show this weekend. And we did our 10 Things game. You're familiar with 10 Things, right?
Right.
And so he asked me one that I struggled with, and I've been thinking about it ever since. And it's basically coming up with bad versions of spells in D&D. So I've kind of been fascinated with that. I've been thinking of a bunch. I think that might be my next tweet thing. I'm going to send out, you know, like spells that don't work, like colorless spray or ball. You know, just something that just makes no sense for a spell. So do you have any thoughts on what would be a good bad spell for D&D, something you wouldn't want?
Oh yeah, definitely. So I think I would change sleep to sleepy. Make somebody like kind of drowsy, you know,
or just hangry.
Right. Oh, hangry would be such a great spell.
Turn 12d6 hit dice to hangry.
Right, exactly. Or Tasha's ugly crying, right? So instead of Tasha's hideous laughter, somebody just ugly cries. The whole time. Yeah. Nice. I think there's it's funny, I think about the Adventure Zone. If you're familiar with the podcast, he gave a magic item that allowed you to change one letter in a spell. And so it would change like the meaning of the spell, right? So you could change, cure wounds to Kurt wounds. And if you met a guy named Kurt, you could wound him with the spell. Like, it was that sort of thing. Or heat metal to heal metal to fix something that was made of metal. So it's that sort of thing that makes me think, like, I was like, this is an amazing magic item that totally breaks the game.
Yep.
But it's so really cool. So.
Yeah, that's something that you give to a player just because you want to see what they do with it, but it's going to destroy your game.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So Short Meanie and 444 asked again, any good villains that you have used or created for a superhero RPG?
Oh, wow. That's awesome. I think so. I've played a lot of Mutants and Masterminds, but I've used pre-written scenarios. just because there's a lot of math in Mutants and Masterminds building your own villain.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think. I don't know that I have played an RPG where a superhero RPG where I've ever created the villain. I will say one of my favorite villains is the White Knight from Mutants and Masterminds, and he is a white supremacist racist who his power is when you are in his presence, you hate people who are different than you. So like his power is actually that. He was a really fun villain to watch get taken down.
Yeah.
Because he was so despicable. So yeah, that was one way. Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't played a superhero RPG in a very long time, though I do enjoy them quite a lot. And usually I would just use the ones from the book. So if we played Marvel, you'd be fighting Doctor Doom or Kingpin or whatever. I ran a session of this Marvel superhero game fairly recently, but I think the bad guys were just like generic robots. Because that was a trial. It wasn't really, anything in depth. So they were just fighting robots in a high school gym sort of situation. But I would say probably the blueprint I would go for, and I'm going to slaughter this pronunciation, Ozymandias.
Oh yeah, from
Watchmen.
Mm-hmm.
So the good guy who does bad things for maybe the right reason.
Right.
Going back to that questionable morality, like kind of has a point in a way, but goes about it in ways that you find distasteful.
Yeah, definitely. And think about your favorite superhero villains. They probably are that. It's like, ooh, this person, if they had just had a different methodology, could be saving the world, right? They could be, Doc Ock, if he wasn't constantly coming up with weird schemes, could be finding cures for terminal diseases and things like that. And so I think those are your most interesting villains. And back to the Marvel example, right? Like the most interesting Marvel villains, I think, are people like Loki, Killmonger. And then if you head to the TV shows, you look at Kingpin in the first season of Daredevil is such a compelling villain.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So yeah, I agree. You have to be able to see their point of view most of the time. Now, there is something to be said for the Joker, though, right? So who is a villain whose point of view I think is hard to see. But that's what makes him so terrifying, is he's so insane.
I mean, I think that's the exception that proves the rule, that he doesn't have a motivation that you can connect to, but he is just completely fat, stinking insane, but in a compelling way. And people have done the Joker poorly and people have done the Joker amazingly. And I think the Joker is a compelling villain, but I think he is somewhat unique in the fact that he's compelling despite not having a strong motivation.
Right. Well, I think what makes him, because he is totally inaccessible, right? And I think that makes him compelling. When you have someone who is evil for evil's sake, but like still accessible or still very human, it's like, oh, this feels weird and this feels cheese. But the Joker is at all times dangerous because you never know if he's going to kiss or kill you.
Yep.
And is at any given point equally likely to do both.
So there's a couple people have thrown in some additional spells in chat. Firebomb, Bigby's hand warmer, Liamon's tiny putt, Tensor's
That's awesome.
Tensor's flimsy disc, Mage Hank
is
monochromatic orb. Yeah,
do you think Mage Hank is like a mage Tom Hanks? Like you create a Tom Hanks that just sits on a bench and talks about boxes of chocolates and things?
Well, I think Tom Hanks is magical. So I think you just summon Tom Hanks.
Yeah, exactly.
So Hit People Guy asked, speaking of Ozzy, have either of us ever had a game where the good guys show up and the bad guys like, nope, too late, I've already succeeded?
Yes, I have. In fact, I have almost a signature move that I've had to change because it's become so predictable.
Oh, nice.
Which is, not only is it that, my plan's already complete, it's the not only is my plan complete, you've been helping me this whole time and you didn't know it. So I think what happened to me was I played Metal Gear Solid, the very first one, when I was in middle school. And there's this moment where you realize like kind of everything the hero has been doing has actually helped bad guys. Spoilers for a video game that came out 20 years ago.
Yep.
But it that was really affecting to me because I was so absorbed in the story. And I've done that a couple of different times where the players show up to find out like, hey, the person you thought was your patron is actually the villain, or the things you've been doing have led to you helping the person you knew was the villain all along, but you didn't realize like the full extent of the plan. And I think the way to successfully pull that off is you have to have dropped hints the whole way. It needs to be a sixth sense moment where when it's revealed, you think back to like, oh, that thing that didn't make sense now makes sense because, and then you feel justified, you get away with it, as opposed to being like, you never knew, and now it's, I've tricked you. That feels cheap, and the players feel like they didn't have any agency. But if you gave the players a chance to notice it, and they didn't, that's different.
Yeah, I have done that a lot and poorly, where it wasn't done the right way, but where, they get to the end, they're like, you've done my job for me. Everything you've done is what I wanted you to do situation. So, but like I said, you have to do it very deftly, and I don't think that I have, but maybe the next time.
I think I only have once. It took me doing it many times in a different way. And, the players, I think I was down on myself about it. The players didn't seem to care too much. They were just glad somebody else was running the game.
There's the chat's just lit up with some of these spells. I love them. Improved visibility, magic mic, tragic rope,
minor delusion,
elevate death, braised dead. Oh, nice. So I think it's Dar Jr. How do you run a betrayer in the party like a doppelganger?
Oh, that's a good question. So there is something that I can't talk about yet, but there's a thing I wrote that will be coming out soon that gives some advice about this. And essentially what I would do is, first of all, you need to be sure that you're playing a game and everybody is going to be on board with this kind of play. Sometimes people don't like when there's a betrayer and they're like, oh, I just want to be able to trust my friends at the table because I can't trust any of your NPCs or anybody else in this world, because you're always pulling dirty tricks. So that's the thing is, your table, if this is going to go over well or not. But then the other thing I would do is I would just take the player aside and say to them, hey, listen, this, your character has been kidnapped or replaced in the night by a doppelganger. I promise you it will be really cool if you play it like the doppelganger. This is what I'm thinking the motivations are. And then let that player run that character and let them sort of surprise you. Don't be prescriptive and tell them when to turn on the party. Let them pick the moment. Really give them the agency, and they will get into it, and it will be so magical. That's the way I would do it.
Yeah, I am not a fan of the betrayer. Like, I'm pretty much on record that I just don't enjoy that type of game as a GM or as a player, because in my mind, the best case scenario is you get to the end and dramatically appropriate moment, one party member turns against everyone else and defeats them. That's going to suck for everyone but the betrayer. And the other side of that is early on, they catch on that they're a betrayer and then you kill them. And so they've lost that character. They have to bring in a new character. So what did that really accomplish? But I've taken this on as a challenge. Like, how could you do it? And I want to give Caleb credit. He and I were kind of brainstorming this together. Maybe a situation where all the characters wake up with like amnesia. And it's that situation where one of them is behind everything, but no one can remember who they are. So it's like a mystery where you try to remember and like you have flashbacks. You're like, oh wait, I remember I came here with you. Like we were in the same car together before we came in this room. So we must be good. So you must be the betrayer. Right. And maybe even the player doesn't know they're the betrayer.
Yeah, there's some real I don't know if you've ever watched Death Note. It's an anime series. I'm not like a huge anime guy, but this one was recommended to me by a friend. It's on Netflix. There's some stuff like that goes on there. I can't say too much without getting into it. But yeah, the idea that everybody would have amnesia, somebody's a betrayer, and even the betrayer doesn't know who it is.
You're right.
Is like, I want to play that game right now.
Yeah, I think it would be a great like one-shot con game. Again, because then even if it goes terribly, it's just one session. You're not ruining the whole campaign. So Dar Jr. clarified that they're thinking about running a situation where the person who is the doppelganger doesn't know they're the doppelganger until the reveal happens. So they are unaware that that's what they're doing. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say the first thing I would do is give that character a chance to make the decision for themselves. So when they figure it out that they are, don't force them then to be evil. Allow the character, a chance to decide what they want to do with that person if you're going to give them that agency. The other thing I would do is, again, just really, really be sure that like it's somebody who puts their time and effort into a character and then finds out they're a doppelganger. Make sure that player is the kind of player who's going to be cool with it, or that maybe this other version of the character does exist somewhere that they've been playing and can come in once the doppelganger is murdered or runs away.
So how about this? So you're a doppelganger, but you're not evil. You're just a shapeshifter. You have taken over this persona and you join this party because you want to be a good person. You want to be a hero. And then sometime during the campaign, the other players find out that maybe they come upon the body. They're like, wait, Steve's dead. And so you're like, you're not evil. You're not trying to turn against them. You've just pretended to be this person, but you've done good things. You've helped them. How do they react to knowing that you're not actually Steve?
Yeah.
So it's not really a betrayal.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, the betrayal is that they've been lying to you, but they're not trying to defeat you. So I think you could have an interesting role play moment, or maybe Steve's still alive. And the guy's like, but I'm a better Steve. Like I cook at camp and I cleaned your shoes and I fought the dragon. Steve's a jerk. And maybe the party's like, you know what? You're right. Steve, you're out. New Steve, you're in.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I do think if you want it to be a situation where something bad is happening, I would have it happen at night, right? Like the players go out, one player, the doppelganger player keeps waking up and it's like, hey, I don't remember doing this, but I woke up with blood on my hands, or I woke up with the fighter's coin purse stuffed in the bottom of my bedroll, right? Like that kind of thing, and let that player sort of slowly figure it out. But I love that idea of just stumbling upon the other person's body. That's so good. So good.
Yep. Nice. All right. Well, I think we're kind of running down here. I'll give one last call out for questions. Well, we'll hit as many as we can. I'm definitely going to throw out something tomorrow on Twitter about Spell Fail, because I just think that's awesome. I want to see so many more people do those, because that's so great. So one last time, Demonplague, this Saturday, runs 2 weeks, 2,000 Canadian, a 1 to 20 full campaign that's also useful as a tutorial for new GMs or DMs.
Yep.
Sounds awesome.
Nailed it.
So anything else you want to shout out while we're waiting for any possible questions?
No, I would just say, if people could, if you're interested in the Demonplague, if you could help get the word out, that would be really, really helpful. So I'll be tweeting the link. Michael will be tweeting the link. I'm going to send him an email, to make sure he does. And Rudy and Lisa in the chat will likely be tweeting that link. So check us out. So thank you so much, to you, Michael, as well. I was not kidding when I said Ecatacon was my favorite convention of all time. And Rudy in the chat can confirm it is also his.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much as always for joining us. It's always a pleasure having you on the show. You're welcome back anytime for any project or just to come on and talk about other stuff. I mean, you've got those D&D Beyond articles. We could break down part of that on the show. I think some of our audience might be interested in hearing some of those same things, if not exactly in the same method.
Sure. Yeah, and I would love to have you on Tabletop Babble. That would be really fun.
Anytime, because I like to talk, if you didn't know, and I sometimes know what I'm talking about, but if I don't, I'll keep talking anyways.
That's awesome.
All right. Well, I don't see more questions, so I think we'll call it here. So thank you again, everyone. Good night. We'll do an awkward wave out while I look for the button that turns us all off.